Hello guys, in last video we seen how we worked with the console commands, and today we will just tidy up the commands and see how we can enhance the workflow of the console commands in Magento 2. So in the last video we were up to the command where using the non-value argument or option, which is the force, so running by force, or we run it without using the force flag. Now what we're going to do here is we just remove everything from here. We probably want the product IDs. We want to remove everything here, we want to remove that, and we will just keep the product ID, and this is required. Yeah, we just keep this, then we will remove those, we'll remove everything, we will remove everything. Now we'll just have output right line console example. So we run that again, just get missing the product ID. We don't use the product ID for now, so we will have the just console example. In some cases, in some scenarios where you want to run the console command but you don't have to use either output or input, sometimes you don't need input. In this case we don't have input, we just type in the message to the output, but we don't use the input. However, the IED will give us a warning saying there are unused arguments, which is this one. So if we put like input get arguments, and this will clear the issue, clear the warning, but actually we don't have anything in the input, so we don't need to use it. Now if we remove it, the IED will give us a warning. How to get around this? I think we can have a abstract class and then extend from using a different method than this, and it will be called inside the execute method. Let's go ahead and do that, and then you can have idea what I'm talking about. So I will have a training core, a new module. I will call it core etc. Now in the module I will say training core. I will have new class console command, or console command abstract console. We will have abstract class called abstract console extends command. In fact, I will rename it to abstract command because it's a command, and this will be abstract command. And now just have this, and what we want this class is to be extended by our class here. So rather than extending the command, we will extend the abstract command. So let's have a abstract command and then extend it. Well, we will have it later. Now we leave it as is. Now what we have to do here is, because we want to get rid of these warnings, and then we run a different method, implemented method here to run the execute command. So what we need to run here is run the execute method, and this execute method will have this set input, this set output, and then this handle. So this handle method is inspired by Laravel framework because at the time you run the handle, then the input and output already set in the class, and then you can get the get output and the get input. So now we are done with the execute method, and we don't need to do anything about it. Now what we need to do is to have a abstract protected function handle, and this will return void, and now we have the handle method. Now we need to set input, so we will add the method as a protected or private, it doesn't matter, and it just say this input equals input, and that's all. Now we need this property, we will call it private input, that's fine. Now we need to implement the output, we will call it protected, and then this output equals output, and that's it, I think. And we need to add the property. We still have it as a private, so we don't need to worry about it. Now we have this set input and set output. Now we need to write the get methods. They will be protected, I think. Protected function get output, and will be output interface, and returns this output. And also we would need the get input, and will be input interface, and return this input. So we have these, and now what we need to do is the following. Now we have this core, and then we need, I think, the registration file. We haven't done that yet. Registration training core, and we have the core module ready, and we have this class abstract command ready to run, to be extended, and I'll show you in a minute how to use it. Now we just run the setup upgrade. Now the setup upgrade is done. Now what we need to do is we go to the console example example and extend the abstract command from the, not this one, abstract command from training, and we need to implement a method because there's a abstract method and this is the method, and then we just have to copy here and then paste it here. We will not need to use the execute method, and this we will just use the this get output right line, and you can see we don't have these warnings about unused parameters or arguments because we use the handle, and the handle is being run by the abstract class inside the execute method. The execute method, both parameters are being used because we set the output and the input. Now if we go here, when we say the get output is already set and will gives us the object, because by the time we call the get output, the output is already set in the output method here, the set output. So when we hit the handle method will have the input and output available to use inside. So this is one of the things you need to bear in mind. Now if we run the command, and now we get exactly the same results. So we just may, rather than use the execute method, we use the handle, and then the output, there's a method get output and get input are available to us to use rather than use these from the parameters inside the execute method. Now this by no means is a standard way of using the commands, but this is a way of my practice to do this. It's a personal thing, but I think this will save us a huge benefit of having unused arguments inside the execute method every time you create a command. We still need to extend the custom command in order to make it more performant, and we'll use less dependencies on other projects by using a specific technique to do that. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, we will need to do the following steps. We have this product ID, and then we might want also a product prefix argument. So this will be prefix, and what we need to do this get input get argument product ID, and this get input get argument product prefix. So this will be product ID and this will be product prefix. Now what we need to do here is we have construct and inside constructor. So inside the constructor we will need also product repository interface. Product repository, we initialize the product repository, and then what we need to do here is product equals this product repository get by ID and product ID, and then we will have output this get output right line prefix product get SKU. Now we'll have these, so you can see here something warning about the name, so we can also do this, move this, and then we just pass null here because we not specify anything, so it doesn't make sense to have a string here, a string name, so we just pass null, and we are good to go with this one. So I will go and have one and then say item. Now training example, you'll need to see what's going on here. Okay, so we need to delete the generated code for training. We will do that again. So you can see we have the prefix, and then we have dash hyphen, and then we will have the product SKU. If we do this with the product 2, we will have this one, and if we have product rather than item, it will be product, and so on. Now you can see here we have product repository, and then the product key we output here by loading the product ID and then append it, prefix it with the product prefix. Now I will want to have to make things more complicated. I will have a model, and in the model I will have a class called product key. So in the product key we will have a public function get key. We will have product interface product, and then string prefix, and this will return a string, and this will return printf string dash string, and this will be prefix, and then product get SKU. So that's all we need here. So we just need these. Now instead of having the prefix being set in here, or the product key is set here, we will add the product key here, product key, initialize it, and then we will have this product key get key product and product prefix. prefix, and this will construct the key for us rather than just put it in the output, because we might want this key to be used somewhere else, not just to be output in the console or to be sent to the output of the console. So if we run the class again, but I think we will need to remove the generated code because we made changes to the constructor, and now we will have this, and now we get the same results. So this is product. If we use item, prefix will be item. Now you can see by the look at the console command or the command class, the custom class, you can see we have two objects being injected in the constructor, and we have this logic. We have everything. In fact, there's no logic here because we only loaded the product ID and then we passed it in. But sometimes the handle or the execute method will grow large. Think of the command, custom command, as the controller. Since we need slim controllers, I think my personal opinion is we also need to have slim command, and also we will need slim observers, but we will come to that later. For now, we need slim commands because the commands shouldn't know about how to make things perfect in order to be sent in the output or to be created. The commands is just to trigger a method, and that's it. Doesn't need to be fat method. The execute method shouldn't be that large. So I'm going to have a strategic way of getting or enforcing the slimness of the command by using services. Using services will reduce the commands, and rather than make them fat, they will be slim and will be more performant. So I think we need to get rid of these because they are unused, and now we will need to start to refactor. To refactor, we will need to make sure that is only one argument is being passed in the constructor. There is no other arguments to be passed. It's just one argument. To do this, we will have a class called service. I'll just call it example. Now this example is a service, and what it does need to do here, we are required to move all the responsibility, all the logic, all the construction and building of objects in order to get the output here. We want to remove all these responsibilities inside the service class. So first of all, we will need to create constructor because that's what it does. We need this constructor to be exactly the same here in the example. So we only use these inside here, and now we will initialize properties, the product key and the product repository. And what we need here, we will say public function get product key, and we'll pass int product ID. That what comes from the command. So these are arguments that are fine to set in here, and then string product prefix. Now this will return us a string. What we need here, we need to remove these. So this will here, we will have product here, and then we will return this product key product and product prefix. That's all we need for the service command. Now we go to the command here, and then rather than having these constructors, we only have one, which is the example service. We need to remove these and initialize it, and instead of having this here, we will have this example service product key, product ID and product prefix. Since the product ID comes as a string, so we will cast it into int, and that will do us. So you can see we reduced how many lines. It's just a few or one line we reduced, but that's in the real world scenario we will reduce too many lines and then move them into on service. Now this service will be a lot more testable, so you can test it, and it's better to be done this way in order to be reused somewhere else, not just in the command. Leaving the code here, leaving it in the command, you can't use it anywhere without making a duplicate coding. But since you moved it into service, this service can be used anywhere else in order to give you the product key without rewriting the same code again and again everywhere else. So you have this command is much cleaner now. Now what we have to remove is these arguments we never used. Now. We don't use these, and I think yes, and we have this. So if we run that again, or we just try to remove the generated code and run that again, we will get the same results using only one object injected inside the constructor. So think of having only one constructor, which is the service command. Not always true. You sometimes need more than one object to be injected, but most of the time try to have only one object. And this the way is you go forward and try to create more commands with only one object injected in their constructor. So this is the last bit of having the refactor, but I also tend to go even further to enforce the one object being injected into into the constructor, so one constructor argument. The way I do it is I will remove these. I should never use a constructor inside example. So this is my aim, this is my goal in the command when I create custom commands. The goal is to remove the constructor. I never use it. Instead I will use service, this get service, and this service will be the example. So let's have a go here, copy this, and this is the service. So how do I make this possible? How do I call a service and it will give me the service I want, I target, which is this one, and then make it available here inside without using a constructor, because using a constructor is having too many objects, and then the code you write in the execute method or in the handle method is not going to be reused anywhere else without duplication. So using a service is always the benefit of having a reusable component or reusable PHP objects to be used anywhere else without duplication. So to implement this approach, I will go in the abstract command and I will have a constructor. I will pass a null here and I'll pass nothing here, and then I will have the object manager interface. Yes, that's correct, the one you've been told not to use in your code, so we will use it in our case, object manager, and then I will have string service class and I will initialize those. I'm using these so I will not use a constructor in my custom command, so I will use these. Now I will have private function get object, and I will have array data, which the argument will be return this object manager, create this service class, and pass in the argument here. So this is one of the things you need to do. Now the next thing I want to do is get the service, so it will be protected function get service. We'll have also array data as optional and say if null is not this service, then this service. So it will be only one instance, it won't be created every time you call it. So you just add the property service here. Now the service will be this service equal this get object and pass in the data and then return this service. Now in the command, if you call the get service twice, we will get the same service always because it's being cached in the abstract command here, because it's being cached here, and now if it is not null, we will always return the same instance. So this is the service. Now we have this, let me have a fix for this beautifier. Now we have this service. How to make sure this service we call is an instance of this one, because we are trying to get it. Now to do this, we will go to the command and then copy it, or we just go to the di. Now we copy this and we will have type will be command. We passed it here in the command list interface, and we will have arguments, and in the arguments we will have service class. This service class will be a string type and will be the full name of the class. Example, pass it here. Now what it tells us is we inject this string inside a command because it's inside here the abstract class and inherit it. So we inject this as the example, and when we call the get service, we'll create an object for that service, and when we call it here get service, you get the exact one you pass in as a string in the .xml file. So we will use this method. Now if we just clear cache flush config, we need to remove the generated code of the training and then flush cache. It doesn't work, so there is something. Cache flush all. Let's run setup upgrade. Now we run the setup upgrade. Let's do php fn Magento, and now we get the command's name and one prefix. Now you can see it works just fine with previous examples, the same as previous example. So if I say product, if I say item, so what's the benefit of using this approach? This approach will be used in order to reduce the constructor arguments or not to use them as possible, and also to have as much of the code written in the command to be reusable and not to make it different from any other parts of the code. So you have a reusable code to be used in the command or to be used in the controllers or any other part of your code, and not to make any duplication. I think this is controversial whether to use this or not. This is not mentioned in any way of any code standards or any behavior of any good examples of writing the command. But I think personally this way will reduce the tight coupling of the command with other classes, and everything being done inside the execute method or the handle method will be removed and be abstracted into services, and these services will be better to test and better to read, and also better to be reused in a different part of the application. I think this is it, and I hope this is useful. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in next video.